Engineers Incorporated for initial planning and funding assistance for the Brackish water desalination project.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. This item is where we're really going to get down into some of the preliminary design and cost estimating and environmental work on the proposed brackish water desalination project here at the city. As I've explained in the past, our intake is showing higher and higher levels of salinity or the water in the San Joaquin River. And so in order to drought-proof the city and also provide another source of water, we're pursuing the feasibility of constructing a desalination plant here in the city of Antioch. It would be located up at our water treatment plant. With this phase of the project is broken into 5 specific tasks, which include looking into utilizing our existing Plant A as part of the pre-treatment. That plant was built in the 1940s. We have 2 plants at the water treatment plant currently, so we'd like to utilize our existing infrastructure. It's also going to look at what type of a bidding process we would do as opposed to the traditional design, bid, build. We are looking at possibly a design build where the same company would design it and build it. And then there's also the possibility of a public-private partnership. And so we're going to look at all options related to that. We're also going to be doing the environmental work, so that'll be environmentally cleared. And then also working on what sort of regulatory permitting we would need for this project. And then the brine disposal, which would involve where we would dispose of the byproduct, or it's called brine, the high concentrated salty water product. And so all of those things are being done as part of this project. It's a $797,000 contract, increase to the contract for a total cost of $1,099,000. As of February, we received the final documentation and approval of our $1 million state revolving fund loan from the state of California. It's a low interest rate loan. And so that's being used for the majority of this project. The $99,000 or so is being funded through our water enterprise fund. So I'd be glad to answer any questions council may have regarding this item.
Questions? Councilmember Ogerchuk.
I have a couple. Do you know of other cities such as Santa Barbara that have been using this and that have kind of said no to the program, that actually cost them too much money and they've kind of quit using it, such as Dow?
So the projects along the coast are ocean desal projects, which they're treating 30,000 plus parts per million water in the river. If it gets in San Joaquin River, if we get over 250 parts per million, which is significantly lower, that's when we stop pumping from the river because the water quality is too poor. So we're, long answer, we're pursuing the feasibility of this due to the lower electricity costs, alternative sources of power, and our existing infrastructure to see if it's feasible. Regarding other projects, I know down in San Diego, they have the Poseidon project that is still in operation, and I know that they're trying to recommission the Santa Barbara project currently because they do have water issues down there, and we'll probably continue to have, like Catalina Island has a little desal plant. They're continuing to experience water problems in spite of what we're seeing as a wet winter.
But as Dow had it, they had 2 of them from my understanding, and now they're not using either one of them. Have we had conversations with other cities so that we don't make the same mistakes? I mean, I know you have an engineer on this, but...
So the engineer we've hired, Carollo, their firm has been involved in the Santa Barbara project. They're involved in a San Jose project, which is a groundwater project that's similar. And so we're using their expertise to vet this out through other agencies. If there are any other places that council's interested in, for example, the Dow project I wasn't aware of, we will pursue that and look into that.
Okay, and... So the funds, this $99,071 from the Water Enterprise Fund, is this taking away money from other projects that we have lined up?
No, with this, we've budgeted for this project in the the 5-year capital improvement program. So this is built into our rate structure. So no, it is not taking away from other projects.
Okay, one last question. Have we sought out any state funding for this, for grants? I know we have the loan, but I know we talked about this when we originally talked about the desalination plant. Did we had asked about grants and you were gonna look into it, or staff was gonna look into it? Do you know if anybody's looked into it? Is there any grants for the city for that?
We do have a consultant as part of this team that their job is to pursue grants for this project. Prop 1 was passed 3 years ago, and they still haven't finalized the state still hasn't finalized the regulations for applying for that. So this is about a 6 to 7 month process we're looking at here, and we're hoping that that's going to line up with that grant money becoming available. So we intend to apply for it with something that's more of a real project.
And that is the last question, is that the how much longer the engineer is going to need before you come back to council with the final?
So I expect to bring this back to council in September. The contract proposed is being completed in September, so I would expect to come back September, October with a report to council about this. And built into their contract, for example, with the brine disposal and a couple of these items, they have tasks in here to hold public meetings to discuss some of these items. So there will be public meetings along the way, and then a final report will come back in the fall.
Thank you.
Cool. Councilmember Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bernal, and I'm glad you brought up Prop 1 because I know Sonoma County takes full advantage of Prop 1 funds. I think a lot of their different water and land issues, they do take advantage of Prop 1s. I think this project may also qualify for Prop 39 funds as well, but you may want to double check on that as well. I know there's a lot of proposition funds from the state that this project may qualify under. So I'm glad you mentioned it, but I wanted to mention there's probably 2 other propositions out there that can give us funding.
And we're also open to federal funding, although there hasn't been any available up till now. So this is being structured so that if we do apply for federal funding, the CEQA document would have to become a NEPA document in order to qualify. And so that's part of this proposal also, is if those type of funds are available to be able to move the environmental clearance to that type of a document.
Question I have on the $1 million that the 100,000 is coming from. Where is the $1 million being paid back from?
It's being paid back through the water fund.
So that we're already paying that in our water rates.
Correct, but what the advantage of this is that the low interest rate, very low interest rate that this is, this loan is for, and the payback period with the way the CPI, the cost of the inflation occurs, it'll be to the city's benefit as we're paying it off over time. So one of the advantages our water and sewer funds have is they don't have any debt, which a lot of agencies do, and that's something we've tried really hard as staff and a city council to keep ourselves from going into debt. A project like this, if the city decides to pursue it, would involve us incurring debt, probably large debt, and so that's one of the reasons we wanted to save our debt capacity for something like this, if this is the way we want to go in the future.
As this goes, I've heard that our water rates are going to be stressed as our usage rates have gone down because of the drought. Is there a potential that as we move forward with this, we're also looking in the next year at a potential water rate increase?
So the water rate increase, we're not going to propose any sewer water rate increases to the city council this year. We're going to continue with the 5-year approval because we did a little internal study and determined that we still had the reserves that were necessary. But depending on the water usage this year and what it ends up being, because it has dropped significantly, we expect to probably be coming back to city council next year with a new rate study for water and sewer. And one of the things we're trying to do with that is to make sure that we don't avoid a rate increase, which then gets much bigger the following year. And so we feel that we're still in a place where we can do the scheduled rate increase and then come back to council, taking into account the drought and now the rain and all of the effects of that on our rates and on our reserves.
And my last question would it be fair for us, especially as new council members who are other than little conversations, hearing really about this for the first time, would it be fair for us to ask for a study session of some sort to bring us up to date on what's been done with the money that's paid to date before we allocate another $1 million to move forward?
Or another 797.
Right.
I could have had, I didn't have the consultant come today just because it would have cost more money to have them sitting in the audience. But we could have them come and make a presentation to the council in more detail about what they've specifically done and what they intend to do with this money. But because we're estimating this is a $70+ million project at a 6 million gallon facility at this point. So this is still a small investment in that cost-wise, even though it's a lot of money. It's a small investment in the bigger project. But if it's council's desire, I'd like to see them get going on this. But if council would like to get more information on it, I can have the consultant come and make a more in-depth presentation.
So I'm in favor of a desal project. I'm not opposed, but I would like to get brought up to speed, just being new on council as to where
Sure,
things are at.
and we can come during the CIP process of the budget process when we're bringing the draft CIP. I could have the consultant come in and do a little piece just on this project specifically, if you'd like, and they could give where we've been and where we're going with this. Yeah, in a study session format, so it's more informal. Ask questions.
Any other comments? Councilmember Thorpe.
I would only echo the mayor's comments in terms of being brought up to speed, and that's it.
So if there's no other comments or questions, do we have a motion?
I'm going to make a motion, that the city council adopt a resolution authorizing city manager to execute the second amendment to the consultant service, agreement with Carollo Engineers, Inc. for Phase 3 of the initial planning and funding assistance for the brackish water desalination project in the amount of $797,555 for a total contract amount of $1,099,071.
And do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion?
I like the idea of the mayor and the mayor pro tem having a conversation and bring them up to speed, because they do need to be up to speed on this project. But I don't want to lose momentum in the direction that we're going, and that's why I made the motion, and I want to just keep going and then involve them as you suggested.
And I mean, like I say, I'm not opposed to the project. I'm basically approving, right, $800,000 that I don't personally feel knowledgeable enough to approve yet, and that's where I stand. Not that I'm opposed, I just want to be brought up to speed before I approve $800,000.
I feel the same, and just similar to the Sand Creek focus area, these things are put in front of us, and we don't know the larger context as to what we're making decisions. So I'll be voting no.
Are there any other comments? If there's not, we'll call to a vote. Item passes 3-2. And are there any public comments?